Hello, girls and boys. Good morning. Happy Monday, and thank you for tuning in. Today, I have a pretty fun and silly book that I want to share with you. It's called The Princess and the Pig. It's a tiny little longer than the books that we have read so far, but I think you're really going to enjoy it. So, let's see what is going on in this book. Alright. Let's see. Not that long ago, in a kingdom not far from here, a farmer was traveling home from the market with a cartload of straw. The farmer was so poor he didn't really have a whole lot of money, that he didn't have a horse and had to pull his own cart. In the back of the cart lay a tiny pink piglet, right there. So he's so poor, he doesn't have a horse to help him, and he has to do all the work by himself, and there's a little pink piglet. And we find out nobody wanted to buy the piglet at the market, but the farmer had taken pity on it. So, sounds like originally he wanted to sell the little piglet, maybe it's one of the animals from their farm, but no one wanted to buy it. I'll call you Pigmella, he decided, as this seemed like a good name for a pig, and he seems to like her quite well. Alright, let's see. How does this look? Good? Alright. It was a hot day, and the farmer stopped to rest in the shade of a great castle. Far, far above him, on a high balcony, a queen was inspecting her new baby daughter. The queen was so rich that she had 7 nannies and didn't have to look after her own child. The queen picked the baby out of her cradle and held her at arm's length. I'll call it Priscilla, she decided, as this seemed like a good name for a princess. Now, let's pause for a second and look at some of the pictures. So here, well, if I can see, here we have the farmer resting way, way, way below the castle because it was such a hot day. And here we have the queen being so high above and holding the baby. Now, already we are seeing a great contrast or an opposite. Now, maybe in some of your classroom, even if you're in a kindergarten, you probably have started learning about opposites. So up and down, tall and short, high or low, and in this case, one big contrast is the farmer is poor and the queen is rich. He was so poor he didn't even have a horse to help him carry stuff. And the queen is so rich, she didn't even have to take care of her own baby. She had 7 different nannies to take care of her. That's how rich she was. So remember, lots of opposites here. Let's see, can you see okay? Alright. A moment later, a wet, squelching noise came from the baby's diaper, closely followed by an awful smell. Whoops! Sounds like the little princess pooped. Yuck! Shrieked the queen, dropping the baby and running off to find the royal nannies. I guess she didn't like that. She left so quickly that she didn't notice she had dropped the baby. Oh no! Well, thankfully, the baby princess was not that disturbed, and the baby fell over the edge of the balcony. Whew. And right below is the farmer's cart with the pink piglet. Let's see what's going to happen. Now remember some of the opposites that we talked about. Down, down, down went the baby into the farmer's cart. And the farmer's cart turned out kind of like a seesaw, because when she dropped, the piglet went up, 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 flew the piglet into the princess cradle. So she landed right in the princess cradle. How silly is that? And when the queen returned and found the piglet lying where the baby should have been, she let out an even louder shriek and fainted into the nanny's arms. So suddenly the queen didn't know what happened. Her baby daughter became a little piglet. She had no clue what just took place. The king thought he knew what had happened. A bad fairy has done this, he explained. The fairy wasn't invited to the princess christening, so she's turned the baby into a piglet to get her revenge. It's the sort of thing that happens all the time in books. Now, christening is such a big word, but I think we can skip over it today because we don't necessarily have to know the meaning. It's kind of difficult, but maybe we can think of it as maybe a party. So maybe the king thought, I know what happened. A fairy wasn't invited to the baby princess party, and now the fairy was mad. And I think that is why a bad fairy turned our princess into a piglet. Because sometimes that's what happens in storybooks, they thought. Well, Meanwhile, the farmer had returned home and was surprised to discover a baby girl lying where the piglet should have been. So they are also puzzled because it should have been a piglet, but they found a baby girl instead. The farmer's wife thought she knew what had happened. A good fairy has done this, she explained. The fairy knew how poor and honest we are and how badly we wanted a child, so she turned the piglet into a baby. It's the sort of thing that happens all the time in books. Now, there is so much to unpack here. So before we talked about how the farmer and the queen and the king and the farmer's wife, they're so different. Two of them are very poor and two of them are very, very, very rich. But there are something that they share in common too. We call that a similarity. Apparently, the king and the queen, the farmer's wife and this farmer, they all like to read storybooks because they all try to explain what happened from the books. And we learned, let's see. And so, without a second thought, the baby became Pygmella, the farmer's daughter. Meanwhile, the piglet became Priscilla, the royal princess. They switched places. It wasn't long before Pygmella was able to eat, walk, and get dressed all by herself. Now, like a lot of us, we are able to do things by ourselves. How cool is that? And the farmer and his wife soon forgot that she had ever been a pig. They just forgot about that past. Well, what about for little Piglet? Things were not so easy for Priscilla. She makes a big mess. She's running all around. She doesn't really want to learn. And she is giving everyone a hard time. But the king and queen never let anyone forget that she was really a princess because they did not really want to deal with the fact that she acts like a piglet. Alright, let's make sure. As Pygmella grew older, she grew smarter and beautiful and was admired by everyone she met. Let's come back to this later. And as Priscilla grew older, she grew not so smart and not so beautiful and was avoided by everyone she met. Again, boys and girls, there are so many contrasts here. Now, the book doesn't really tell us why, but I would guess she grew smarter, the girl, because she likes to read and she likes to learn on her own. And she is admired, and that's a word meaning she is liked by many people. Everyone likes her. And I'm going to guess the reason is because instead of doing what she wants and what's good for her, the little girl likes to do what is good for others, and she likes to think about others and not always about herself. What about the little piglet? Well, let's look. She does not really like to work hard and learn. She chews on books instead of reading books. That's why she was not so smart. And she was avoided by everyone she met because she was always doing what she was not supposed to do. She just wanted to do what she wanted to do, and she did not listen very well. Well, here's a big turning point of the story. Then one day, the farmer's wife overheard some of the castle's servants talking about the princess who had turned into a pig. It's just like what happened to Pygmella, she told her husband, only the other way around. The farmer soon guessed what had happened. The princess and the pig must have swapped places somehow, he explained. It's the sort of thing that happens all the time in books. Now again, they like to read so much that they think what has happened is kind of like what they read in storybooks. The poor farmer and his wife were very unhappy because they loved Pygmella, but they knew they must return her to her rightful home. They are so sad because the little girl, and now a teenage or a young girl, has been a daughter to them. They love her and they care so much about her, and they don't want to let her go. But they figure, well, if they swap places somehow, we need to do the right thing, even though it's going to make us so sad. Let's see. Alright, I want to make sure it shows up well. Alright, here. Pygmella was also unhappy. She loved the farmer and his wife and did not want to live with anyone else. But they were an honest family, so the next day they all went to the castle to see the king and queen. Look, Pygmella is so sad that she is just laying on her mom, the farmer's wife. The king and queen listened to the farmer's story. What do you think the king and queen are going to think about that? Maybe not what you might expect. But they did not believe it. What nonsense, cried the queen. Ridiculous. The king laughed. This girl may be smart and beautiful, but she does not look or speak like a real princess. And here we've got a picture of Pygmella and the princess looking at each other for the very first time. But that wasn't it. Well, let's see. That's the queen. The queen thought she knew what was happening. It's a trick, she declared. This girl is just a farmer's daughter pretending to be a princess so that she can marry a prince. It's the sort of thing that happens all the time in books. Again, they are trying to explain what is going on with the storybooks they read. Kind of silly. Well, it wasn't a really bad thing. Here's a big picture before I read to you what is going on after that. And so Pygmella, the young girl, now a teenage or a young woman, returned home with the farmer and his wife, where she married a young shepherd and lived happily ever after, and never once wished that she had been a princess. Now let's pause. What is a shepherd? A shepherd is someone who takes care of sheep. So Pygmella married a young boy, a young man who takes care of sheep for a living. And this is such an important point. Pygmalion never once wished that she had been a princess. Being a princess means being someone important and being someone who is really rich, but she did not miss that one bit. She didn't care about being someone who is rich and important. Let's come back to this later. Why? And meanwhile, what is going on at the castle? And let's see here. And Priscilla also got married, the piglet, to a handsome prince, although he had to be talked into it. The prince didn't want to marry Priscilla, the piglet, but he was pressured into marrying her. Priscilla was changed into a pig by a bad fairy, the king explained. But once you kiss her, the spell will be broken and she will turn back into a beautiful princess, added the queen. It's the sort of thing that happens all the time in books, they assured him. They try to make him feel confident or comfortable. They try to promise him that. But unfortunately for the prince, here. It's not the sort of thing that happens in this particular book. No matter how many times the prince kissed the piglet, she did not become a princess. She remained a pig. The end. Alright, girls and boys, I hope you liked today's story. Like I said, it's kind of silly, but what can we learn from this fun and kind of silly book? Well, again, there are so many opposites like you learned in school. Up and down, tall and short, high and low, wide and narrow, and poor and rich, right? So many opposites. But the other thing that I thought was really cool is how Priscilla, or I should say, Pygmalion, the young girl, the little girl that turned into a young woman, she would rather be poor and be with the people that she loved and the people that love her instead of being a princess. She could have been a princess, but she did not want that. She didn't care for that because being rich, being important, is so not important to her. And I think that is so true for us too. Now, maybe we're not very rich, but if we have our families, that's all that matters, and that's what the little girl had learned. So, I hope you enjoyed today's story, and I'll see you back here tomorrow again. Bye!